Communication and community building, how a video conferencing tool helped the University of North Georgia Libraries survive, succeed, and come together during the time of COVID and beyond. And this is presented by Tim Daniels, Nash, and Austina Jordan. If you would like, you can remove the closed captioning, the arrow next to the live transcript, and selecting hide subtitle. This session is being recorded, and that includes the chat, which also includes private chats. So just remember that as well. We will be recording the sessions and they will be emailed to registrants. And we will be monitoring the chat, so you can enter your questions and comments there, and be sure to use everyone when you're sending a chat to the group. Hope you guys enjoy the session, and I'll hand it over.
Okay, well, actually, there's a third presenter in the group, and that's me, Amanda Nash. And so we welcome you all, and we're so glad you decided to join our session this morning. If you'll take a second before we get started, we've got a quick survey. We thought it would be interesting to see. We're going to talk about 3 tools that we're using. Largely, we're going to be talking about Microsoft Teams. So I thought it'd be interesting to see what tools you all are using in your libraries as well, if you're using some of the same ones we are. So Austina, if you go ahead and advance our slide.
All right. There we go.
All right. Again, Tim Daniels, Amanda Nash, and Austina Jordan talking about our, and we probably could have called this how a collaboration tool helped us more than anything, but I think it helps to understand our shift to using Microsoft Teams, and to a lesser extent, Zoom and Blackboard Collaborate, if you understand a little bit about us at the UNG libraries, because we actually made the decision to adopt Microsoft Teams just prior to shutting down for the pandemic. So Austina, if you'll move on us on to the next slide. Okay, so a little bit about us. University of North Georgia is a fairly new institution. We were formed through a consolidation which took place in the spring of 2013. And the 2 institutions that came together to form UNG probably could not be more different if we had tried. We were founded through the merger of North Georgia College and State University, which was a historical institution in Dahlonega. Georgia had a corps of cadets from its inception, traditional student body for the most part, and residential college, combined with Gainesville State College, which was founded in the 60s as a junior college. It's non-residential and is non-residential to this day. And we have a mix of traditional and non-traditional students. So apples and oranges is a good way to describe us. Oh, no worries, Jennifer. I saw that in the chat. So that's who we were to start with, and we were put together in the spring of 2013. And over the course of that time, by the fall of 2019, we have become a public regional institution, one of 6 senior military colleges in the United States. We're now serving nearly 20,000 students. We have 5 campuses, and those campuses are as far as 120 miles apart. We've got physical libraries with collections at 3 of those campuses. We've got a learning center at another campus, and then the 5th campus, we have a building, and there will be kind of a library corner in it, but of course the pandemic, the timing of that, we really have not fully taken residence there. So Austina, if we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so you can imagine, given that institutional structure, that the library's structure was also kind of complicated. And for those first 6 years after consolidation, we had very much a location-based organizational structure. So we had 4 campus libraries, so 4 campus administrators that we called head librarians. Each of those librarians were responsible for all the operations at their location. So access services, reference and instruction, collection development to a lesser extent. We had a kind of a nascent technical services team, but for the most part, we had no traditional functional departments like reference or access services. So we were kind of an interdependent whole reporting to the dean, but we were very much siloed. If you had a question about reference taking place at the Dahlonega campus, the Gainesville campus, someone at the Gainesville campus would have to come through me as the Gainesville head librarian back in those days. And I would have to reach out to my counterpart at Dahlonega. And so we had a lot of that kind of up and down communication. And so in 2019, we had a change in leadership. One of our head librarians became the new dean. And so we, talked about how we were operating, and a reorganization was announced. And so we decided to adopt traditional library divisions, and they would function as kind of operational teams with representatives on each campus. So we've got folks in access services. Austina is our head of access services, and she's got people on 4 of the campuses that report either directly or indirectly to her. Same thing, we've got similar situations with other departments. Each one of those divisions is led by a member of our administrative team. So Tim's in charge of technical services. I do reference and instruction. So it's really more like you would expect an academic library to be organized, but because we are spread across with 5 campuses, our leadership spread across, and we've got people on in those departments and on those teams spread across as well. And so we worked all throughout the fall of 2019, putting that into place. We did a tour of all the campuses to go around and to announce the reorganization and answer questions and kind of gear up. And our plan was to implement it starting in January 2020. So, and then we all know what happened in 2020. So Austina, if you'll move us forward on the slides. So at the start of 2020, UNG, the institution, decided that it would be adopting Microsoft Teams institutionally. They were going to add the platform and begin offering training on it and sort of move us in that direction. And our administrative team was really excited about that, because one of the challenges to our location-based structure, and one of the things we knew would continue to be a challenge even with the reorganization, is communication across our campuses. A lot of that was taking place by phone and email. With all of those challenges, trying to track somebody down by phone, or the formality and sort of time lag of emailing back and forth. So we had, that's a challenge that we knew we were going to have to overcome. Also, with the reorganization, we knew that we would have these new operational divisions, that we were going to have to encourage communication for people who were not used to communicating with one another. So we decided as an administrative team that moving on to Microsoft Teams would be really helpful to us. And we decided we would, get some training for our administrators, and then plan to roll it out and implement it gradually over the next few months. So we attended a training session on Friday, February 28th. And then, of course, 2 weeks later, on Friday the 13th, it's announced that the university system is shifting all of our instruction online. And we were closing most of our locations. Our Dahlonega location was open a few hours a day in order to provide support from some residential students there who were stuck on campus. But basically, rather than implementing this gradually and rolling it out over a few months, we were forced to adopt it overnight. And so we had to make an instantaneous shift to conducting our operations largely at a distance online. And so we decided, let's bite the bullet. Let's put everybody on Teams. Let's do as much training as we can to get everybody up to speed as quickly as possible. And we will just head down that path, because not only do we no longer had 4 locations, we had like 33 locations from all of us working at home. So in some respects, that shift helped us with the reorganization, and we've been thinking a lot about that over the course of the last few months. But that's who we are and how we came to using Microsoft Teams. And now Tim and Austina are going to talk to you a bit about the ways in which we use Teams. And again, also we'll talk a bit about Zoom and Blackboard, but they're going to give you a look at what we're doing with this tool.
All right, so Tim's gonna go first, and I will advance the slide to our next, there we go. All right, so Tim's gonna talk about his division, and then I'll talk some about access services. So Tim, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, so with my division, which is technical services, it was kind of interesting. We were the first department to really consolidate and become an actual department, or to sort of go along with the mantra that I was using, why can't we do things like everybody else does? So we brought, actually all of my people are centralized here in Dahlonega, and then we would occasionally go to some of the other campuses to do things as needed. But what we ended up doing when we made the switch over to COVID is my folks actually started then reaching out to some of Austina's people who help with, we're doing a big inventory and some other projects, and her folks are using that. But my group, because they, for the most part, they shared the same office space, they were a really close-knit group anyway. And what I found with Teams for my folks is that they really adopted it quickly. And we pretty much start every day with a kind of a good morning chat session, and we talk. And so what we ended up having to do is create our own chat channel where we just sort of have conversations and quick, questions and that sort of thing. And then we have an official technical services channel where we talk about projects and we post how things are going and where things are. And sometimes to the point that that channel almost gets ignored. So we do have to be a bit mindful. I think that's one of the things in this. When you create a lot of different channels in Teams, you do have to be mindful of what goes where. And that's the one unique thing I believe about Teams is really it's a communications platform more than just a video chat service. So you can do all kinds of things with it. And you really have to keep an eye on the various tools. But in any event, my folks really gelled around the chat service, and we use that daily just to stay in touch. And I would argue that we're almost more in touch now with that than we were before, because my office is separated from theirs, and our head cataloger, her office is also separated from my technical services group. Within that chat channel, we always are talking back and forth. And then if we need to do a quick meeting, that's one of the biggest things we use the Teams for is, I can say, hey, do you have a second to one of my folks? And they'll be like, oh yeah. And we'll just do a real quick video chat, cover the topic that we need to cover, and then move on. So it really has kind of grown organically with my group in that they've really embraced it. But they're all also, all my folks have been vaccinated and they're ready to come back to work. And it sounds like on our campus that starting in the fall, we will pretty much be coming back to mostly normal operations. And so my folks are ready for that too. They're very excited to come back. But one of the things that we've also talked about in our management team is that Teams is not going to go away. We're going to keep using this tool because we are so widespread geographically. It's just such a handy communications device to be able to reach out to the campus that's 100 miles away and say, hey, what's going on over there? Or can somebody over there take a look at this? So with my folks, we really have embraced Teams, and my people seem very, very comfortable with that. And with that, I will pass it back to Austina, and she'll talk about some of the things that they're doing.
All right. So as Amanda said earlier, so I'm the head of access services, and I have at last count I think there's 14 people in my division. And we are the only division that has people in the facilities from open to close, right? So from as soon as we open the doors at 8 a.m. until we close the doors in Dahlonega. We had been doing like finals week till 2 a.m. in the past. This year, we've only done it till midnight. And so that's kind of one of the unique things, is that I have people on my team who never really kind of cross paths. And one of the things that Teams has enabled our group to do, and part of my presentation will be to do a little bit of a demonstration to show you some things that we've done in Teams, but we're able to have a centralized access services team. And by doing that, the folks who work at night, or even I also have, I think there's at last count, I think I have 6 part-time people in my, no, 7 people part-time in my division. And so like those folks who aren't here 40 hours a week, and then those folks who only work at night or maybe only on the weekends, they can now kind of catch up by reviewing the chats that we had together. And one of the other things I've found with my group in particular, in terms of swapping guest shifts, or if people have a chat schedule, they can do that in chat more easily, I find, than we had been doing in email, because they are able to, how should I say this? Like they can post their need and people can respond to it. Because I think sometimes what happens in email is that you have some people who only ever reply all, and then you have some people who only reply to the sender. And so sometimes maybe someone had already picked a shift up, but people keep offering to cover that shift. And so the chat brings, tasks like that, like rescheduling tasks like that have simplified in my mind. Another thing that I found it really helpful, because we are we have collections at 3 places, that anytime I need to do a shelf check, I can toss it out there. I can give the call number and the barcode, and people can look for things for me. And so it just little things like that in the past felt a little bit more cumbersome in email. For me, I can drop it in there, and I don't, and I usually try to communicate like, hey, can somebody take care of this, in the next half hour? Or I'll say, this isn't a rush. When you've got time, please go look. And so that really for us has been a way for us to kind of keep each other in the know of how things are going and keep things updated. Let's see what else. One of the other things for training purposes too that I found that I really appreciate, and I realize lots of platforms allow this, but the ability to share screens has just across campuses, because sometimes like screenshots and snipping things are helpful, but sometimes being able to do something live and show a person, like either maybe they're not quite seeing where they need to click to access something in Alma, or maybe they're new and they're unsure about why something isn't working the way they thought it should. Screen sharing has in many ways has really transformed our ability to do ongoing training and onboarding, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screens for just a minute and going to now attempt to show you my Microsoft Teams. All right, so this is what my Microsoft Teams home landing page. You can see I have a lot of teams on here, and I actually also have a lot of hidden teams. One of the things that's really nice about Microsoft Teams is that you have the ability to create things that are need specific. And so, for example, we had a professional development planning team, and so we had a team set up, and then the actual event was hosted in here. And I participated in something with HR, the supervisor training program. And so that was there for a while. And so there, there's different things I was involved in. Those teams do not go away, but you can hide them, right? So you're not cluttered. I do actually have a few things in here as I was looking today that I need to push away just to kind of clean things up. But you'll notice back in the fall, we had a working group of people who were helping to create some digital displays for a program that the English department was doing around Toni Morrison's book, Beloved. And so in this instance, we were able to, we created a team for the folks, the general team. So this is available to everyone. And then you can have these are called channels, right? And so we were able to set up channels for people who were in charge of the book discussion or who were working on the displays around these topic of people, places, and themes. So this is just an example of a project-based working group. But then here's my division, Access Services. This is our division team. And so, one of the things, you have a lot of control over who can do that. And one thing you'll notice that, if you scroll through, we do have a lot of gifts that show up in our teams. That's actually something that's controlled at an institutional level. Some institutions have gifts turned on and some do not allow gifts. So that's actually something I've recently learned that can be, allowed or not allowed. So just as a way of knowing some of the restrictions around access to different features. This is the library associate training team that I initially did when I onboarded an employee over the summer. And that was a unique experience. I did lots of interviews with people over Skype because our institution does not allow us to have Teams meetings with people outside our organization. So again, that is something that's very important to think about, is to make sure you know and understand what restrictions are in place. We now finally have access to Zoom. Zoom was blacklisted very quickly within our organization pretty soon after the pandemic started, because they were just so concerned about the different security issues. They did eventually relent, and once some things got worked out security wise, but this is where I did the training for one of my employees. And I'm able to put files, sorry, I'm trying to move this out of the way. Okay. I can put files in here for them to review and projects to work on. And this was meant solely just to help onboard. One of the reasons I like using these channels for specific things like training someone is that these things don't get buried in emails, but they make a quick file sharing system that I can put in place for them to access. And this, again, I'm not gonna expire this. They will always have access to this. But this was you'll notice over here the little padlock. That just means that this person has, I can control who has access to this. And so they can ask questions in there. I can give them ideas about things to do. I posted the employee handbook up here, the holiday schedule, training videos that they can access. So it's just a nice, really simple way to share documents. And then also, if I go back here to the post, that's where we can have chats, and we can drop other links in there. It's a variety of different ways to utilize that. We also had, our library leadership team used this for our, when we were sort of in emergency operation mode, and we eventually sort of sunsetted this and moved back to our traditional libraries administration team. This is our general team for the entire organization, and so it has regional channels in here. I'm currently onboarding 2 new employees and have a very similar setup, and they're listed in here with almost the exact same. I use that same setup here. We have a practice channel for folks so they can go in there and practice posting and deleting and doing different things, just to give them a space where you can't really break things. And we have actually set up here that just department heads make posts here, because in the general channel homepage, because we found that it was getting really cluttered. Other people can comment. General posts are a little bit more controlled on this landing page. And then if I go back to this screen here, this here is, and I'll talk about this after Amanda talks about research and instruction, but this is actually a place that we created for folks to be able to share things, because we wanted to make sure that the work area was kept for work things, but we also wanted to create a digital space for people to connect with each other. And so you can see all the different things, we've got animal and pets channel. And yes, we all, lots of cats in our library family. Our colleague Lynn, her daughter, is very good at catching lizards. So there's lots of lizards on this page. It's just it's been a really fun way to connect with folks. We have what we call break room chat, and the banter in here is all over the place. And it's really, I have really enjoyed this channel. because it gives people the freedom to share stuff they want their colleagues to know about, fun things, funny things, sort of like, did you know sorts of stuff. So that's a way that we kind of created a space for people to connect on a social, more personal level. But I will say that for me, the onboarding aspect, especially because I have people at various locations, I'm able to have team meetings in ways that previously it was very difficult to get everybody together for a variety of reasons. But a lot of that is things are more accessible these days, I would say, and people have begun to adapt to chat. It's been a really positive experience for me on my part. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
No, Alstina, keep it up for me if you
Okay,
would.
sure.
I'll talk to you a little bit about how we've used it for reference and instruction. Alstina, if you would open up our reference and instruction team, that would be great. Okay, so we've got our general team here, and Austin's got a slightly different view than I have. One of the things we have done as administrators in using teams is we try not to overload our group, because we're on more teams than anyone within the libraries. And so one of the, as Austin was saying, the benefit of having the specific channels lets you zero in your audience for that group. So I've not unloaded all of the reference and instruction scheduling. We have a scheduling channel. We have channels about different working groups we've got going on. And so she doesn't have to be a part of that, but and see all of that traffic. So it really helps you. But if she wants to, I can add her as a member very easily. Or add her as an administrator on one. And one of the things we have deliberately decided to do with these teams is to have multiple administrators at an upper level on them and the main general channel because we were very concerned during the pandemic that one of us might become ill. And that if so, we needed to have backup built in. And that's one of the nice benefits about this, is that if you have multiple administrators in a channel, then they can take over if someone has to be out. And that can be beneficial post-pandemic as well. Folks go on leave, they go on vacation, people depart the institution. So having backup and sort of redundancies built in has been really beneficial. But we use our reference and instruction team internally for operating our division. You'll notice we have, Austina, if you'll click on files for us. We've got all kinds of documentation here. When they announced that we were shutting down physical operations on Friday the 13th, we knew we were given 2 weeks. Classes were going to start back online within 2 weeks. So we had basically a 2-week window in which to shift our instruction program entirely online. And that was something that we had kind of very little online instruction going on prior to that. For a lot of reasons, our institution, the face-to-face classes, those faculty members never got a space in our D2L class management system unless they asked for one. So the faculty weren't used to working online unless they were teaching a fully online course. So we weren't offering a lot. We had some departments that needed it more than others, the nursing department, for instance, but for the most part, we were, you could probably count the number of online instruction sessions we did in a year on 2 hands. That has changed quite a bit. So we had to gear up all of our librarians to teach online, basically within a 2-week period. So one of the things that we did was we created some handbooks for online instruction, both for teaching instruction sessions and conducting research consultations. Those also we were doing entirely face-to-face prior to the pandemic, and now we do them entirely online. And my sense is that we will maintain those as entirely online going forward. There's so many more advantages to offering them that way. But Austina, if you'll scroll up on that screen for me, you'll notice we've got a couple of things we've sort of parked here and bookmarked. One is our current instruction needs spreadsheet, And we've got people at different locations handling things. And as librarians get requests come in through our website form, we keep track of all of those here. So we always have a picture of what our demand is going on here, and everyone can get to it. This file belongs to everyone. And then we also have a class assignments folder, and we've been using that as folks show up at the reference desk or for research consultations, needing help with an assignment. If we can get our hands on that assignment, we dump it in here so that everyone has an opportunity to have those instructions when they're working with students. So the benefits of Teams are just, they're unlimited in a way, because we have this opportunity to share this information across all of the librarians, across all of the campuses, and keep everyone on the same page easily. Now, we're not just using the Microsoft Teams internally, we are also teaching through Microsoft Teams. We can conduct, synchronous instruction sessions by setting up a meeting on Teams and inviting the students in that class to it. We do a lot of our research consultations on Teams as well. And that one's very handy. The students tend to be very comfortable and familiar with it. It's readily accessible through an email invitation, so they can just hop on. We can make impromptu calls if we need to, if we're assisting someone on doing chat reference and someone has a question that just text chat's not going to handle. You can switch over to a Teams call very easily and then do a video chat or just an audio chat, screen share if you need to. So we've been using Microsoft Teams heavily in our reference and instruction. We also use Zoom and Blackboard Collaborate to a lesser extent. Our Blackboard Collaborate is built into our D2L class management system. And so that it's easily integrated, and that's one advantage to it. It's the one that people are least familiar with. And so that is a challenge to using it, but sometimes it makes, depending on the faculty member you're working with, it makes an easy tool to use for that. As Austina was saying, Zoom, our institution initially was telling faculty members they could not use it. I believe there was a lot of rogue use of Zoom going on. And so they finally capitulated, but we've had to adopt to using Zoom as well for instruction. We also use it for any kind of event that we have that people from off campus are going to participate in. And Austina will talk to you more about some of the ways we've used Microsoft Teams for community building and socializing. But if we're having a session where we need people that are not UNG affiliates, so not current faculty, staff, and students to participate in, then we do need to use Zoom or Blackboard Collaborate for that. And Zoom tends to be the easiest because people are most familiar with it. So we are using these platforms, but particularly Microsoft Teams, in a number of ways for our reference and instruction operations. So Austina, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about briefly how we use it to create sort of a social community platform for our team across all the different places we are. So I'm going to go back over here. So we have the library, learning, and leisure communities. And in here, again, like these are different channels for people to talk about these different topics, but also out of here grew different themes that we had around, we have these things that we call tea times. And these started in the very early days of being shut down at home. And that we were doing them every day. And mostly that was really, I think, as an organizational sort of temperature check. We wanted to make sure, because we had a lot of people who lived by themselves, and we wanted people to feel connected in ways that were not just about work. And I have found it to be a really fun part of my week. We eventually we tapered down. We were doing 5 days a week, and then we kind of we tapered down to like, I think 3 days. And now we're at the point where we have it once a week. And we are even in conversation about what that'll look like in the fall. It'll probably be be not quite once a week, and we'll have things that'll be formal. And it was an opportunity for people to volunteer to be host for the event. And so the idea being tea time, 4 o'clock, so bring your mug of tea, and we'll share things. Some days we just have banter and we don't have like a formal theme, but just to kind of share some of the things that we did in this space for learning, sharing, and connecting. We've had art shows, so where people share art that they have in their home that maybe they've purchased or been gifted, or we also have several talented artists amongst our group, and so people are able to share some of their own pieces. There's several people in our group who are avid gardeners, and so several of them did gardening PowerPoints and so in that instance, they weren't necessarily demonstrating, but they took photos of their gardens, and they talked about like what they did when they planted things, what they had success with. Because if you know anything about Georgia, some of the places, you may have a yard that's full of nothing but clay. And so, what do you do in those instances? So it was a really fun way to get to know people. And the things that really interest them. We also had a lot of cooking demonstrations. Our dean even did a cooking demonstration for us where she taught us all how to make real chai. And that was really fun. And I still make chai. We had one where we did the whipped coffee became all the rage for a few weeks. It's funny to think about all the things over the course of the pandemic, food wise, that were the rage. I can't tell you how many loaves of bread I baked. I don't bake bread, but I did last year. Just because what else is I going to do? Anyhow, but then we also had a lot of pop culture themed events where we had people who talked about movies. There's some really neat things that are out there where you can actually create a playlist so you can watch things together so that you're not eating scads of bandwidth trying to share live video. So that was we learned some neat tools that way. We've had several music video events. We had one recently where we did a whole series, me and 2 other colleagues, where we talked about TV shows that were gone too soon. So about shows that only lasted 1 season. And we gave an argument for why they should have continued. And then we also did an episode that was about podcasts and podcasting and how to do that. And then we've also had a number, our collection development librarian has spearheaded a lot of our reading themed tea times, and we've read books together. And this next week, people are going to do kind of some book talks where people they paired up with someone and they assigned each other books to read. So anyhow, it's been a really great, I think, opportunity. It's been really fruitful. I think we've seen people have been able to connect with each other across campuses in ways that it just flat out wasn't happening in prior to our use of Teams. And so that's been, and for my division in particular, because I have the largest number of staff, my staff have been able to get to know a lot of our faculty librarians through tea times. And so it's been fun to see them pair up together, a staff and a faculty member, to host a tea time on something that they share in common. We even had a librarian and 2 staff members do a tea time about K-dramas. And so that was really fun to learn about the Korean soap opera world. So anyhow, all right, so I'm going to stop sharing and go back to our slide, and I'm going to turn it back over to Tim. If I can, okay, Tim, let's see if I will.
Oh, she muted herself while she was talking to herself. So that's pretty cool. While she's getting the slide up, we can go ahead and start. Now, we have painted a very rosy picture of what we have done, but it is not all roses and wine either. There are problems with this world of video chat and constant online meetings. What we found is, for us, we had a few librarians and staff who were uncomfortable being on camera. So during the meetings, they didn't want to turn their camera on. They didn't want to be on camera. And some of them have started to, get a little more comfortable in that space, and some of them have not. We had a couple of people who had trouble distinguishing between email and business space and Teams and the tea time. Originally, I think they expected the tea time to be like a group meeting where what was going on in our work world was being discussed. And that was definitely not what that space was for. And so that's why really we ended up developing a lot of those breakout channels, because certain people on this panel who may be currently talking really like to put GIFs up. And that's one of the best things I think about Teams. Okay, I'll admit it. I love putting up a good picture, and I am happy to thumbs up any kind of post. I was just looking at the chat over here in Zoom, and I was like, oh, I need to put up a thumbs up on a couple of those comments. And it's not as easy to do in Zoom as it is to do in Teams. And we've even quipped sometimes in Teams, when a meeting is over, when the GIFs really disintegrate into complete hilarity and people are starting to pick on each other and just sort of goof around. But this is not an experience that is unique to us. If you search online, interestingly enough, Zoom is the platform when you start looking at news stories and people talk about video fatigue and being exhausted by being online and in online meetings all the time. Zoom is the tool that they really talk about the most. And there have been several articles recently where people have started talking about, okay, here's some of the things that people are experiencing in their Zoom fatigue or Zoom burnout. And these are some of the tips that we suggest to, sort of mitigate that problem. And there was a really nice article in Stanford University News, and they have 4 things that are sort of the top 4 reasons why Zoom really burns you out, and some of the ways to get around that. And so real quick, I'll go over those. One of the first ones was excessive eye contact. And so, in Zoom or in Teams, if you have the screen full of the software, full of this thing that's in front of you, and you've got people's faces there and they're all staring at you all the time, it can be exhausting. And one of the reasons they were explaining this, one of the reasons they said this is for human beings, direct eye contact really only happens for 2 particular reasons. One reason is the romantic reason, and one reason is the attack reason. And so there's usually you're getting these weird signals because people are staring at you all the time. And really the way to sort of solve this is amazingly simple, is just to minimize that window. And I tend to do this anyway, because it makes me uncomfortable to have like a whole screen full of one program. So I always hit the escape button and shrink the Zoom window down or the Teams window down to about as far as I can get it and still be able to pay attention to what's going on. So one of their suggestions is, shrink it down, or maybe just pick one person. And of course, not everybody always has their video on. So, you can always, sort of focus on the little cube that has somebody's name in it if you want. That's another way to sort of work around that. And then one of the second reasons that they talked about is seeing yourself during the video chat. And there are people, you don't want to look at yourself the whole time. And there's, in Zoom, usually there's that little box of you down in the corner, and you're looking at you, and then you realize you're scratching your nose and you're on camera. Not that I've ever done that, but some people do that. So it's an easy way it's an easy fix, because if you mouse over your image, you get a little ellipses. And if you click on that, one of your options is to hide that self-image. So if you don't want to look at yourself all the time, you can always hide that and put it away. And that way you at least don't have that yourself staring back at you with everybody else staring back at you as well. Now in Teams, this is not as easy because you can't do that. You can't hide that, or the last I checked, there's no way to hide that little video stream. So you could either put up a static image of yourself, or one of the things that we do a lot in Teams is backgrounds, and we use a lot of backgrounds. And so you can always, put up a background, and then if you move just right in your camera frame, all the people can see is your background, and you're sort of not in the frame. So there are ways in Teams to do that, but it's not as easy as it is in Zoom. And then I'll sort of mix these other two together. So it says, one of the things they were saying is, in a meeting, when you go to a physical meeting, you can kind of pick your place. You can get up, you can move around, you can stand if you need to. You have a lot of mobility, but in video chat, you don't feel like you have that much mobility because you really are restricted to the frame of the camera. So depending on the angle of the lens of your chat or your video camera on your computer, you can sort of, you don't want to move out because then people think you're up to something. But you want to keep, right in that center. And so what they suggest with that is, being sure that your workspace is enough that you do have some mobility and you can move and stretch and just give yourself a break. And, give everybody a break. And so if somebody drops their video feed for a minute because they need to stand up and stretch, it's okay. We're all dealing with this environment. And I think a big thing is, we have to be nice with each other. We have to be able to stand up and stretch and move. And so it's not a diss on the presenter if somebody's standing up and moving, they just need to stand up and move. And then the last thing is, because of the cognitive load of being in the video chat, so you can't talk with your hands as much. You can't get things across with body language. So you have to be very, very aware of what you're saying and how you're saying it, and making sure that it comes across how you want it to come across. And some of the suggestions for that are, maybe try to use your hands some more. Like I talk with my hands a lot, so I'm always moving around. But try to figure out ways to get yourself, if you're in that frame, a little bit more, move your head, move your body more, really increase the movement that you have in that situation. And because they've asked us to leave time for questions and we have 3 whole minutes left, I think then that kind of brings it to the 4 main things. I will say that the company Citigroup has determined that Fridays are Zoom free days. And so they don't allow any video meetings on Fridays. And I think that's also probably a good idea, is to have a day where you don't have to be on camera. You don't have to be there. But with that being said, I'm going to be quiet and we're going to turn it over to anybody who may have a question. You can speak or you can type it into the chat space and we'll respond there. And I'll pass it on.
Faustina, would you move the slide forward? We can show people the responses that we've gotten to our survey.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, I forgot about the survey.
Yes. All right. Well, do I have to go back to the to
You
get
should.
to the results?
You should be able to do it through the presentation.
Oh, am I using the wrong?
It may not be working. Hang on, I will,
Drop the link in the chat for me.
yeah.
What I want to add a comment to one of the sort of challenges, tips and tricks. Perhaps one of the hardest things when you initially implement Teams is setting up your notifications so that they are that they meet your needs and your willingness. Like I do not like a massive load of notifications. I have Teams on my phone. I find that really helpful. And so, yeah, it can take a while to get that sorted out and how to mute things and that sort of thing. Okay, let me do this and then let me stop sharing and get this website up so we can view our results. Let's see.
Does anyone have a question? Do you see ways you might use some of, if not on Teams, then on another platform your institution has adopted? Because it's a Microsoft product, I think more and more institutions will be adding this. But
so Amanda, it looks like it's only allowing me to see the poll, not the results.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a shame. Let me tell you what our results were. We've had the primary, the number one, almost by twofold is Zoom. And then to a lesser extent, Microsoft Teams. And then with looks like just about 1 or 2 people using Blackboard Collaborate. So I'm not surprised by those results. So not surprised at all.
All right. Well, thanks
We-
for, I'm gonna share the screen one more time and I'll put our contact info up there. We welcome your feedback and your, if you have questions about what we're doing and ways that we've implemented this in our organization, feel free to reach out to us. So there's our email. But we appreciate you taking time out of your day. We know you're all busy, probably finishing up school years and closing out semesters, so.
Yeah, and if you all have any questions, do reach out. And if you adopt Teams and you want some ideas, you probably have to like cut us off. We could talk about it for days. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you at the other sessions.
Bye.